John Standish and Fairlight, let's give it up. Thank you. Aren't they amazing? Just amazing. And I'll tell you, Fairlight, they got it right. Everything is going to be okay. And you know how I know that? Because this morning, we are awakening to our very own Super Bowl. That's how I know that. That's how I know that. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit. So good morning and welcome to February, our second month of our Global Vision series for this whole year. So over 100 centers this morning or this afternoon, if you're in the East Coast, spoke about this idea in February of awakening to our own spiritual magnificence. That's our theme this month. And so today we're going to literally kick that off, like the pun intended. We're kicking that off this morning by awakening to our spiritual magnificence and discovering the incredible benefits, the incredible celebration and outcomes and demonstrations that comes from that. We'll be talking about that. So could you go to the next slide, please? So as we have been doing since the beginning of this year, we have been affirming and stating and proclaiming our affirmations for our global vision. And so we have it now, thanks to Ross, we have it on bigger text now so that everybody can read it. So let's all affirm together, we see a world that works for everyone, where all life is honored as expressions of the divine, where people live according to spiritual truth, where humanity awakens to spiritual magnificence, where humanity rediscovers personal creative power, where we live as one global family, where kinship with all life prospers, where unity and connection is emphasized, where forgiveness is the norm, where spiritual guidance is valued, where we are called to conscious social action, where people have enough food, homes, and a sense of belonging, where there is peace, harmony, and justice for all, where resources are valued, cared for, and shared, where communities are meaningfully involved in service to the world, and where there is a renewed emphasis on beauty, nature, creativity, art, and aesthetics. How about a Yahoo for this being? Woo! I tell you, I willingly sign up for that. I am inspired to hold that true and near and dear to my heart every single day, putting that out there and coming together every Sunday and proclaiming that as our affirmation. Could you go to the next slide, please? So, you know how I always like to start out? I always like to start out with something a little funny. And go ahead and study that picture for a second. Because what you will notice in this picture is somewhere out there, a woman and her horse is running free. In so many ways. So many ways. So that is all a part of awakening to our very own Super Bowl, is we get to start out by literally hanging up anything that may be constricting us and keeping us from running free. So that's a good slide for that. Next slide. So here we go. It would not be a complete service if we didn't do a shout out to what will be happening later today. So we're going to get it out. We're going to do it. We're going to celebrate it and get it out of the way early on. These folks are Super Bowl bound, and I see a sea of orange and blue out here that I am so proud of. So how about we give it up for the Broncos? Yeah. And as you know, 2 years ago, I made a promise to you that every single time the Broncos go to the Super Bowl, I will be up here in a Bronco jersey and jeans. So I made good on my promise, thanks to a couple of kind folks in the congregation that loaned me this jersey. Thank you. Thank you. So next slide, please. Go Broncos. So I am one with all that is. This This is what we're focusing on this morning in this global vision. And I'm going to start out by a quote by Ernest. You live because life lives in you. You move because there's a universal energy flowing through you. You think because there's an infinite intelligence thinking through you. You exist because the divine spirit has sought to individualize itself in and as you. This is why you are called the temple of the living God. This is a divine spark at the very center of your being. But you need to recognize this, believe it, and act upon your belief. So folks, that's the first step of awakening to our very own Super Bowl this morning. We are awakening to our spiritual magnificence this month. And I want to ask you a question. What are the qualities of champions? What does it take to be a champion in life? Shout it out. Keep them coming. Qualities of champions. Teamwork, belief, working together, tenacity. What were some others? Courage. Openness. Yes. Vision. Absolutely. So for the guys showing up in California on the field this afternoon, did they get there by themselves? They did not, did they? So it takes something a little bit more than just ourselves, right? Right? Right. And so, right. And so, knowing that, and knowing that we are a temple of the living God, what do we need to partner with? What do we need to awaken to walk as a champion in our own life? The divine spirit. That's right. Whatever you call your divine nature, your infinite intelligence that's within you. Ernest Holmes says it this way, and I absolutely love this. Mind is individualized, but never individual. The mind, which is universal, will never be any less than universal. It will never be individual, but it will be individualized. There is a great difference. The wave in the ocean will never be a wave by itself. It will be the ocean as a wave. That is all that it will be, caught up as a wave, but still the ocean. And perhaps that is the concept Jesus had when he said that God delivered everything to him, but he could do nothing except God as him, in him, doeth the works. So folks, we're not individual separate creations. We are unified. And we know this because we talk about this every single Sunday and in classes and in readings and all of that. But what does that really mean? I mean, when you woke up this morning, you entered into an experience of you being you. Did you feel like you were in partnership with something greater than yourself? Some of you did. Some of you maybe not. I'm not sure. But I can tell you this, that to garner and gain what it takes to get to a Super Bowl, to garner and gain what it takes to be a champion in your own life, I guarantee you, you will need to go within and bring about that greatness that resides in each and every one of us that is in partnership with the divine. Because there's no way that we can operate without it. We are not separate. Now, how many of you know what it feels like to feel separate? Yeah, pretty much sucks, doesn't it? It is not a great feeling, is it? We don't necessarily recommend it here. That's why we're awakening to the spiritual magnificence, not going to sleep of the spiritual magnificence. And that's okay. That's really okay. Because as we talked about last month, those times when we do feel separate, they're on purpose. There's a reason for that. And it always brings us back. to the truth. It always brings us back to center. Ernest Holmes says, each incarnation is unique, precious, and necessary for the whole of life to be expressed. He says diversity is the norm. Diversity is the norm. Not looking alike, not saying the same things, not being the same, not dressing the same, except for today. We're dressing the same today. But diversity is the norm. Unity does not mean sameness, Ernest says. Unity means what? Unity is connection. It's partnership with the divine, because life lives through us. The same universal energy and spirit that is within the trees and the sky and the Super Bowl and the football and our dog and our cat is the same energy within us. The same energy that's created some of the most spectacular, beautiful art and the fastest cars. It's that same energy inside of us. And we get to uniquely express it. That's our job. That's what we get to do. We get to be that individualized incarnation of spirit. It doesn't mean that we're separate, because he goes on to say for the lesson today that it's not like I have my mind, and Maureen has her mind, and Kim has her mind, and Ross has his mind, and Universal Spirit has their mind. It's not like that at all, because then we would be separate. We actually all share the same infinite intelligent mind. I, for one, am very grateful for that, especially on days where I might have used up all of my words. I know I can tap into the universal intelligence and let it speak for me, and I'm happy about that. So I wanted to ask, there's this thing that's within us that we already understand what makes a champion, and what makes greatness, greatness. And we know what it feels like to feel a little separate and kind of go to sleep to the truth of our being. And we also know what it feels like when we're awakened to that. And I found myself in a place of business not too long ago that I just stopped and looked around. And that place of business was so beautiful. What they were about in every single way, right down to every little detail. And I could just tell that the owner of this business was just so into giving the experience and the skill and the quality that they believed in, because it showed in every aspect. Have you guys ever been in a place like that? Yeah, that just revealed the very beingness and the purpose of why it was there to the highest degree possible. What parts of your life is doing that right now? Think about that. What areas and aspects of your life are revealing itself in the highest and the best expressive, divine way possible? And are there places in your life that you'd really like to express in the highest divine way possible? Because this morning, we are doing that. We are awakening to our very own Super Bowl. Everything that took for those guys to show up on that field this afternoon, it wasn't individual. They all gave of their unique, special, expressive gift as a team to be able to be in that space, to win that place. So what areas of your life do you too want to win that place of greatness, of being a champion? Now, I know that we all know that feeling, and I'll go to it real quick. There's this feeling that Socrates and Plato and Aristotle wrote about and talked about, where they said for us to live with happiness, we needed to live with, and I might not pronounce this right, so help me, arete. Arete? Am I pronouncing it right? It's A-R-E-T-E with a little thing over the E. Arete? Arete, am I saying that right? So it's a word that translates as excellence or virtue, yet it has a deeper meaning. The deeper meaning is something closer to striving to do your best moment to moment to moment. It's like Don Miguel Ruiz's fourth agreement, always do your best. And we covered that a few months ago. But it's that striving to do your best moment to moment to moment. So how many of you have been working on a project and and you accomplished it, and you're like, yeah, that's done. Whew, I don't have to do my best anymore. You know that feeling? You know, like the next day, you think you get a vacation from doing your best. And I have to admit, I do that. And when I do that, I feel like a horrible slug by the end of the next day. I really do. I'm like, at the end of that day, I'm like, oh, well, what did I necessarily take a break from? Living life? Striving to take in the juiciness and the deliciousness of whatever Spirit's got to offer me that day? I don't need to take a break from that. Do I? Do we? I want that arete. That arete of that deeper meaning, striving to do my best, moment to moment to moment. And I tell you, if it feels hard for me to do, like if I'm exhausting myself, I need to look at why I'm doing it, right? Yeah. What's the purpose of me doing it if it's zapping all my energy and making me feel tired? So that's an important thing that we want to do. So when we're not doing that, like I said, that next day when I give myself that break and I feel like a slug by the end of the day, there's this gap that these folks talked about. This gap is where depression and anxiety and disillusionment hang out. And so sometimes we get in a habit of taking that day off, and that day turns into a week or turns into a month or turns into years, and we get swallowed up with this seeming feeling of isolation and separateness. But that is a lie. It's not the truth of our being. And so we need to awaken to the truth of our being again, to that spiritual magnificence, and bring in that arete again. There's a Japanese word that means the similar thing, kaizen. Kaizen. Marcy Shimoff describes it in this way in her book, Happy for No Reason. To make the quickest progress, you don't have to take huge leaps. You just have to take baby steps and keep on taking them. So in Japan, when they approach Kaizen, it says it literally translates to continual improvement. Using Kaizen, great and lasting success is achieved through small, consistent steps. You know, Don Miguel Ruiz in his fourth agreement says, when you always do your best, it doesn't mean that you're like off the charts, freaking excellent all the time. It means that in the moment, you're always doing your best. And whatever that best is in the moment is the best. It's all that's required. And it's going to change moment to moment. But there's a feeling, you see, there's this dynamic feeling that comes with it. And I know you know what I'm talking about. So go there with me real quick. When you know you're doing your best, no matter what the circumstances and situation, how you're feeling, what's going on with your body, if you know you're doing your best in the moment, that feels a certain way. You are vibrationally in alignment with your kaizen, with arete. And when we take that day off from being consciously aware and being tuned in and turned on and connected to Spirit, we know what that feels like too, right? So who wants to awaken to their very own Super Bowl this morning? All right. Me too. I'm very passionate about that. There is this boy, this teenage boy, that recently was given the speech to his graduating class in New Zealand. And a week before it, he found out he had a very aggressive form of cancer. And the doctors did not think he would make it to his speech. But he did. And he changed his speech. And what he changed it to was this. First, he said, I am so grateful to be here sharing this newly written speech for you. I'm not giving the speech that I wrote for you previously, because things in his life changed. And on that day, his best looked different than what he thought it was going to look like a week and a day earlier. But this is what he said. No one of us is getting out of here alive. He said, so be gallant, be great, be gracious, and be grateful for the opportunities that you have. Be grateful for the opportunity that you have today to do your very best. He says, continue to grow, continue to develop, be passionately dedicated to the pursuit of your own greatness unfolding. And I really like that. It speaks to me. Because for whatever reason, I may in the past have been looking for a free day or a free, you know what I mean, free lunch, free day, free month, whatever that might be. There's something about what this young man spoke about that really touches me, because I can sign up for that for myself in partnership with Spirit. I know that I can do that. To be the best that you can be. And you know what? It sometimes takes another person to help inspire us and motivate us to be better. There is something historical happening today in that Super Bowl. Do you remember the movie? It just went out of my head. The movie about the woman that found the African-American boy and adopted him. Blindside. Yes, The Blind Side. He is playing today in the Super Bowl. That's right. He is for the Jaguars. The Panthers. Oh, see, I don't even know who they are because they're not winning. So, no. Oh, my God. The Panthers. He's playing for the Panthers. But the really cool thing about that is they just did an article with her on Friday and released it because she said, you don't give up on people. You don't throw people out. Because, he had this toe injury like a year and a half ago and was released from his other team, and people kind of wrote him off and thought, well, that's it. His football career's done. He did what he could do. And then miraculously, just like a month later, the Panthers picked him up on a 2-year contract, and now look, he's going to the Super Bowl today. Well, it's okay. It's okay because he's going to the Super Bowl. That's pretty freaking amazing, I think. That's really great. So the mom is saying a very important thing here, and that's don't give up on people. Don't write them off. All last month we talked about how every single life is just as valuable as any other life. There isn't one single life universally that's more important or more deserving of all of those things that we read. And so, is there any part of you that you have given up on and are writing off? Because it always starts with ourselves. Is there anybody in your life that you have given up on and are writing off? Because folks, sometimes it takes somebody believing in us to inspire us. And we can go from not having anywhere to live to being adopted and going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, there are so many stories to show that and to prove that. But the main thing is there any part of you that you are writing off or giving up on? Because you are not separate from the infinite intelligence and the energy that has created everything that has ever been created or will create everything that has ever going to be created. So don't write it off, please. Another good thing that came out of that article that she wrote, I love it because her and Ernie, they are right on. They are together, is she says this. You know how in this country, she says, we immediately categorize people, and that's just not right. I'm doing a direct quote here. She says, as a country, we have to stop judging people. I love Michael as much as I love my 2 biological children. There is no difference in them at all. And I'd like to be known for stepping up and encouraging others to do the same. Don't count people out. She says, in this world that we live in, racism is still alive. She says it doesn't have to be. Because diversity is the norm, says Ernest, right? Diversity is the norm. So she says if everybody in your inner circle all look the same and dress the same and sound the same, she said, stop that. Branch out. Become the norm, according to Ernest, and involve some diversity. Because to me, that is a part of our champion of our lives. That's how we get to create our very own Super Bowl, is we get to be great in all of those areas. Even Mary Morrissey was talking about that. She sent an email out this morning, and I thought, well, that's interesting, because her email pretty much summarized my entire talk today. And that just doesn't happen all the time. So there is one mind, folks. But this is what she talks about greatness. And a lot of times we use greatness in terms of comparison. And it's got nothing to do with comparison. I was in a meditation this week where Deepak was doing a meditation on love, and he was talking about entering into the space of love. There is no judgment. There is no comparing. There is no this or that. We are truly all one in this beautiful essence of love. And then there's this idea of greatness, and that's why we're awakening to our very own Super Bowl. Because the only thing that we ever need to compare is ourselves to ourselves, not ourselves to anything else. So she says, Mary goes on to say, she realized this once when she was invited to Canada to speak, and it was during the Olympics. And she noticed a huge difference in how they reported the Olympic events that were taking place. They were reporting each individual athlete as reporting their time and showing how much better they were doing from their last time, or they weren't comparing them to the other people. It wasn't all about the gold, silver, and the bronze. It was about how they were showing up in the moment in the greatest way they possibly could compared to their other numbers. And so that's the other part of the meaning for this morning is, I know I had asked you, is there any part of you that you are discounting and throwing out? The greatness comes from knowing that when we always do our best, every single moment in partnership with Spirit, that there's this beautiful unfolding of a champion within. And it's what inspires us to continue to unfold that champion within. It's that essence of that pure love, folks. It's something that I told Tony, it was either this morning or last night. I said, I feel this talk so passionately, but I don't have all the words for it. So in this moment, I'm just going to know that you feel what I'm talking about, that you feel what I'm getting at, because there's that essence that comes from within when we partner with the divine, that champion that comes out. Mary Morrissey says, how do we awaken and express our gratitude? Winston Churchill said it perfectly. Responsibility is the price that we pay for greatness. So what do I mean by that? Let's go to the next slide. So this is what we're doing, awakening the divine within you. Go to the next slide. Oh, here's our Rumiism. I kind of got ahead of myself here, so let me go over my Rumiism. I looked in temples, churches, and mosques, but I found the divine within my heart. That's where the divine is, folks. It's not outside of you. Let me look at my list and tell you to go to which slide I'm on. Oh, okay, next slide. Perfect. I am. You are the only one who gets to decide on the word that comes next. Choose wisely, because you believe what you tell yourself. That's the responsibility that Winston Churchill was speaking about. We have a direct responsibility, and we pay the price for greatness by how we answer that. I am. So if we say things like, I am a loser, or I am not good enough, I am not going to make it, does that resemble greatness in any way? Is there any way that if you were in partnership with infinite intelligence and divine spirit, that you could possibly really mean that? There's not. So I am great. I am worthy. I am good enough. I am a champion. Does that ring truer to you? Yes. And if there's any part of that that feels uncomfortable, I invite you to take a greater look at that, to dive deep and go within, pluck out that untruth that you may be carrying and holding on. Pluck it out, because it's not the truth. But that's where responsibility is all about. It comes down to our own responsibility to answer that I am, to speak the truth about ourselves and others, but mostly about ourselves, because folks, when you speak it and believe it about yourself, that's how you're going to see it and experience it with others. It's the truth. I know you don't always want to hear that, but it's the truth. So let's go to the next slide. There is this beautiful pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. You know, I mentor a new minister, and we have a call every month, and we had our call this past week, and we were talking about that. And she was asking, because she says, you know, I'm really wanting to not, she's very into doing and showing up right. And she says, and I really want to learn how to pause. And instead of always directing the energy and the thought and what's next to do, I want to receive a little bit of that direction, you know, from infinite intelligence, from universal guidance. It's like being in partnership and being open to that partnership. And so we talked about that, and we talked about that pause. Because when we're thinking that we're operating on our own, we can kind of get a little tenacious, a little stubborn, almost like a bulldozer sometimes, right? We've got this idea in mind, and we've got this goal in mind, and we're just going to, right? That's not really how it all works. Because when we're in partnership with Spirit, it's up to us. We have a responsibility to pause and receive that divine guidance. And that's what makes us a champion. That brings us into greatness. Because remember I said that team didn't get there to the Super Bowl on their own, did they? No, we are not going to get to our greatness on our own. We need to constantly partner and listen to the divine within us. Next slide. So there is a holy and sacred place inside of you filled with divine wisdom. Connect with the ancient and wise being that is at the core of your essence, and you will dance with the heavens. That's what we're speaking about. Next slide. Oh, this is perfect. So I was watching this special this past week on the wild areas of India, and they were talking about this desert in India where the conditions are super harsh, like they say nearly impossible for anything to live and to grow and to thrive. Yet in this desert are several cities interspersed. And this is what they talked about, folks, and I thought this was so amazing, that the people that live in these cities, in this desert, they have this beautiful symbiotic relationship with everybody else and all of the animals and the water and the trees and the food. And they're very intentional about it. So intentional that their camels, because they so honor this camel, this creature allows them to live in the desert and to thrive. And so they decorate their camels by cutting their fur into these beautiful designs. And on some there's like hearts and sunbursts, and they change them up. Isn't that beautiful? They're very intentional, because they know that if it wasn't for the camel, they wouldn't survive. And they're kind of sure that the camels probably wouldn't survive if it wasn't for them. So they honor them and love them and ornate them. And I just thought that was so cool. It reminded me of that place of business that I was telling you about, where I looked around and I was like, wow, you can really tell the owner here is into revealing and expressing their greatness in what they do. That's kind of what they're doing. And they realize that they do it because it matters to their survival. So what areas, you know where I'm going with this, right? What areas of our life, what areas of our community can we enter into this relationship that is so intentional and honoring? You know, what parts of ourselves inside do we need to decorate? Do we need to honor? Do we need to express gratitude? for the passion of being able to partner with that area inside of us. And in what ways would you decorate it? In what ways would you make it ornamental? It's important, folks. It really is. To me, there's a value in that. And believe me, it's going to be different for each and every one of you. But it's super important. These are the ways that we are creating an awakening to our very own Super Bowl. That boy that spoke to his graduating class, I bet you anything, he'd give anything to have time to go in and create ornamental blessings in every area of his life. And he gets it. He gets it because remember what he said? Remember what he told those kids? He told them, be gallant, be great, be gracious, and be grateful for the opportunities that you have. There is nothing in your life that is not deserving of your absolute best. There is nothing in your life that is not deserving to be in complete partnership with Spirit, with bliss. Be passionate about it. Ignite it in whatever ways feels right and good for you. And never, ever, ever anymore complete the I am statement with anything that does not resemble greatness. Because you're worth it. This whole universe is worth it. And we're relying on it. Next slide, please. I love this. So, you know how everybody's got their own special talent? There's something that we all do great. You know, and there's something that bikers do great. I mean, bikers, when I say the word biker, there's like a thing that comes to mind, right? I mean, bikers tend to be strong. They tend to be confident, right? Strong, confident. Well, here is a biker gang that uses their skills and what they're all about to break up dogfighting rings. I mean, I could totally see that, right? So do you see how they are awakening to their very own Super Bowl, being who they are in service to this greater expression of humanity and the universe for these dogs? I thought that was pretty cool. What do you guys think? So if there's parts of yourself that you're thinking is not acceptable or, whatever, like the example of the bikers, there might be places in society that might look down upon bikers or frown upon bikers. Totally unnecessary, folks. Remember what Ernest said, diversity is the norm. Well, this is a perfect example about how who we are and that special essence of who we are, we can get to show up and make such a huge difference in the world of others, and in the world of these dogs. So it's a beautiful thing, an absolute beautiful thing. So the next slide, loved this. Peyton says he does pray. He says he prays. And he thinks that winning might influence the character of some person or some group. But he doesn't necessarily pray to win. So what are we praying for? That's another aspect of awakening to our very own Super Bowl. Awakening to the greatness that's within us in partnership with Spirit. What's our intention? What are we creating in an ornamental way? What are we honoring and respecting and celebrating in bliss within our lives and within ourselves? And what are we praying for? There's a difference. There's a vibrational alignment and frequency difference, folks. So those are all of the ways that we get to awaken to our very own Super Bowl today. And I have affirmations, but what I'm going to do is I'll share those at another time because we're running out of time. But I've got some affirmations that I promise that I will put on the website, on a web page. And I'm going to invite all of you to go to our website because I've got some really powerful affirmations that go with this talk to take us through this week. So we'll get those on the website, maybe by tomorrow. Would that be good, Troy? Okay, thank you. All right. So are you guys ready? After the Super Bowl, right, that's right. So are you guys ready to awaken to your very own Super Bowl? Yes. Do you have clarity inside of what you'd like to honor, what you'd like to create in an ornamental way, what you'd like to experience in a much juicier way? Are there any parts of yourself that you were discounting and throwing out that you're now ready to embrace with a heart open wide, partnering with Spirit? Let's go into prayer. Knowing that we are all one, knowing that there is a magnificent infinite intelligence and a love so encompassing, so blissful, so pure, so magnificent. We know that as we awaken to that partnership with the divine that is already within each and every one of us, that we create this experience of greatness in our life, that we are truly champions in every aspect of our life, of our community, in our world. And we know that each and every moment as we show up, being and doing our very best, that we are honoring ourselves in the greatest way. We are honoring each other in the greatest way and honoring the divine within in the greatest way. When we are open to that, when we allow it to reveal itself, and when we say yes, this is the truth and the motivation and the energy behind our greatness, and we are now open and receptive, and we welcome it and embrace it in every way. So we truly move from surviving to thriving in every aspect of our life. And it feels so good. It feels so blissful and exciting and passionate and delicious. And I am grateful for the opportunity to be yet even more awakened to the divine within. And so we go forth this week allowing it to be so, and so it is.